Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're sort of slowly waiting for those latecomers to join. So that we'll sort of wait for a couple of minutes. But thanks for all of those that have joined so far for attending this lovely session. Let's what we'll do is we'll slowly crack on, and people can join as we get underway. So look, again, thanks for joining, and I'm super pleased to welcome my good friend Dan to the next in our series of webinars. So hey Dan, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate, pleasure. I'll start by saying that we, as always with any live production, we've had a few technical issues, and mine seems to be ongoing. If I glitch out, then you know why, but hopefully we'll keep the show on the road and keep going. So look, if we just pop to the agenda, what the aim of this is to give you a complete overview of Perifery and CCK and how we work together. But just in terms of introductions, so for those that don't know me, my name is Pete. I'm a senior sales director at Perifery. You probably don't know who Perifery are, but I'll move on to that in a bit. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Dan. I'm technical director at ccktech and oversee pre-sales support and professional services.
And a shiny new title as well. So congratulations on that, Dan.
Thank you.
Let's just go through the agenda and what we're hoping to cover. There's quite a lot, and we've got 30 minutes, and we'll try and keep it to 30 minutes as much as possible. And I'll try not to trip Dan up too much with some questions he hasn't prepared for. But look, we'll sort of go through who we are. That's both Perifery and ccktech, and talk about the partnership, how it initially formed, and where we are now. We certainly will touch on the sort of ethos that we share, both companies, and how we strive to continue to offer excellence to our customers collectively, and then talk about what the future holds, and open the floor up to any questions for those that have any. So let's just start with a bit of an introduction as to who we are. So I'm sure most people on this call have probably never heard of Perifery. That's because we're fairly new. So Perifery are the new media division of a company called Datacore. Datacore software are a US-based company. And Perifery has sort of grown out of acquisition. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard of Object Matrix. Object Matrix are acquired by Datacore, and here we are now. Nothing's really changed in terms of Object Matrix. We're still very much focused. Perifery is very much focused on the media and entertainment world, and very much sort of archive workflows within the media and entertainment sector. Dan, do you want to briefly go through ccktech and introduce what you do and your history?
Sure, yeah. So we're just coming up to 31 years old as a business, and I'm sure many of those that know us know our heritage in media and tape media in particular, and actually, you know, we started life, believe it or not, as a VHS tape manufacturer many moons ago. But we've been led by our customers and had to change what we do a little bit and reinvented ourselves a few times along the way, and very proud to be where we are and have some of the customers that we do.
Good, absolutely, and you should be. So like CCK, Perifery, well, Object Matrix have been around for 20 years. We have very much a global customer base of media users from sports, news, production, post. Unfortunately, we share quite a few of those customers with CCK. We'll talk about those, some of those in a bit. Also, just to touch on what we do. So Perifery, we provide S3 compliant object storage and a suite of applications as well. Deployed on-prem or as a cloud service, we have a bunch of tools that not only protect your content but enable you to access it in any way from anywhere. But again, we'll talk about that in a bit. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about ccktech and the offerings, Dan,
Yeah,
before we move on?
for sure. Yeah. So ultimately, over the last 10 years or so, we've really changed a lot of what we're doing, and naturally, as a storage focused reseller with our heritage of tape, we've moved more into file based storage, and that's sort of grown into anything from a camera card to a multi petabyte storage platform, usually S3 driven, as Pete will be pleased to hear, and everything in between. And we pride ourselves on our level of service. We've got lots of active support and maintenance contracts. We're doing a lot more managed services and cloud offerings, and some of which we'll delve into a little bit more, I'm sure.
Perfect. So look, let's go back then. Let's go back 6 years. So it was 6 years, give or take, to the day where I had a phone call from a rather lovely Cockney gentleman that wanted to talk about storage, and a particular customer was looking for more of a future-proof platform to not only protect that content, but to have applications around it that made it easier to access and distribute and do lots of other things. So that's where we first met, Dan. I'm pleased to say that customer, of which I'm not sure if I can or can't mention, but that customer is the Ark, and they're still very much alive and kicking, and a solid customer of ours. So do you want to let's go back to that, and I guess from your side, what was the reason for reaching out? What was the purpose of it all?
I mean, they had a particular requirement for a large storage platform. It wouldn't be fair for me to describe what was outgoing, but I think what Object Matrix at the time was replacing was high maintenance and tricky to support, and costly to support ultimately. But what drove me reaching out to you really was more around simplifying what they were trying to do, because ultimately the storage requirement itself wasn't too complicated, wasn't too complex, but it was very important and integral to their workflow, and the stability that the Matrix Store platform at the time, as it was called, offered was fantastic, and all of the tool set around that was great. Needless to say, the after sales support has been fantastic and good enough that they've expanded it since as well.
Thanks, Dan. Always good to hear. I mean, it's something, as you said, that you pride yourselves on is after sales support, and it is exactly what we've done over the years. And the reason we've grown organically as a company is we not only provide the best in class solutions for archive storage and access, but also the support that ultimately means that we have a partnership with our customers. And I know that's exactly the same for you, and that's the way you work. So I think, is it fair to say that that's sort of one of the reasons why we've always worked quite closely together, is actually we share the same sort of the same sort of ethos around that
100%.
all.
Yeah, 100%. Similar ethos. I think we're very keen to fix problems, as I'm sure most people are, but we do pride ourselves in going the extra mile. And I know from having some difficult phone conversations with yourself over the years, Pete, and you guys have always gone the extra mile as well, and I think that's why the relationship works. But equally, we are quite customer driven in terms of what we offer, and you may recall another conversation in, I think, the beginning of the pandemic, where I rang you and said, what you're doing, can you do it slightly differently, and could you make it pay as you go, and could it be cloud based? And I don't want to take full responsibility for our own cloud, but we certainly had some early conversations around it.
We'll get on to how the cloud formed in a minute, but I love the fact you wanted to drop that in.
But no, ultimately, the willingness, I think, to change what you were doing to help our customers is, testament to what we do.
Brilliant. And so I guess you sort of mentioned we've gone through the customer side, the service side, but in terms of other elements, so what was the reason why you found it useful, or sorry, let me rephrase that. What was the reason ccktech wanted to work with Object Matrix 6 years ago and still do now, apart from the what we've just described?
I mean, ultimately, we were very keen on the S3 interface, but also the tool set that sat around it. My history working for a media asset management provider many moons ago meant that I was always very keen on metadata and making sure that it was utilized properly and actually existed in the first place. And with DropSpot and other tools that are available in the Object Matrix portfolio, I like the fact that you could add metadata at point of ingest, because as we all know, people always plan on revisiting their rushes or their media files and tagging it and logging against it later, but it never really happens, or very rarely. And the ability to add all that metadata at point of ingest was very powerful. So that was something again that was quite key to those early decisions.
Good. Okay. And I mean, those sort of things have evolved as well. So what you're talking about, Dan, is the interfaces that we had initially, and how I mean they've transformed over the years, which I'm sure you'll attest to. From file system applications, being the fact we're an object store file system front end, to the asset management platform that we have, which is Vision, which is a catalyst to the cloud platform. But before I get onto that, so initially the way we worked together was very much on-prem, so deploying systems in facility. That's Object Matrix software sitting on commodity hardware and packaged up by ccktech and deployed to your customer base. That was how we started working, and then we still do that to this day. But as Dan alluded to, it was just before the pandemic where we decided to offer services to so more managed services to our customers, and Dan rightly so said, hang on a minute, why don't we look at or is there a way of looking at offering more of a pay-as-you-go service rather than a fully blown managed service that sort of spans over a term? So that's where our collaboration, I guess, accelerated. And do you want to talk about that a little bit, Dan?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ultimately, we all know what an interesting time that those early stages of the pandemic were, and I remember having a bit of a long, lengthy conversation with you, because we did have quite a bit of time on our hands, I think, in April 2020, to just really talk around some pain points that one particular customer was having, and they were talking about wanting the ability to put data in the cloud, but once it was there, they couldn't really do anything with it. And by do anything with it, I mean, putting it in a cloud bucket. It's an object. It's got an object ID. Depending on what platform you're using, it might be slightly more intelligent than that. But ultimately, they didn't have any real ability to view it or do anything with it. And it got me thinking, really, as Pete mentioned about Vision, that was something that was quite powerful and could be used slightly differently in the way that it was being used at the time. And the ability to give somebody, the ability to log in and use Vision, and the tools that it offers, now, back then, was something that was quite compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's also mention, because it is relevant, the cost side of things. So
yeah,
whilst we started offering this cloud service, which was great, and Vision as the front end and having a really simple way to get into your storage and to sort of view and access your media, the price was a bit of a factor when we think about the other providers available. And without
100%.
dancing around the bush, it's when we talk about public cloud and how prohibitive that is. Is it fair to say that actually the offering was so compelling that it made sense for you to not only talk to the one customer that you were talking to, but to all of your other customers?
Yeah, 100%. Once we got those commercial elements nailed down, I think that was what made it really quite helpful, actually, especially at that time. I mean, it's helpful today, but during the pandemic, it was incredibly helpful. The cost per terabyte per month, but also the ability to guarantee they weren't going to get stung with any egress fees. It gave people the opportunity to utilize it as an active archive often. Especially a lot of our customers are specifically in the production world, whereby they are shooting a lot and they want the ability to get at that media and sometimes reutilize it and monetize that archive. And I think having the tools to be able to search that, but also knowing they can pull it back without any unexpected cost, is really important. So yeah, cost predictability has been very, very important over the last few years, definitely. And as we all know, many cloud platforms don't really present themselves in that way.
No, completely. And I think there's one thing that was missed out of all of that is I think the combined package of Perifery and ccktech being focused purely on the media world is actually
Yes.
we understand the challenges and we understand
Yeah.
the pain points, and ultimately, as you said before, Dan, we solve problems, and that's what we do. And we don't. It's not often where we offer an out the box solution that is a one size fits all and away you go. So there are often things that we need to address, and we do that as a collective, and we're happy to do that again because this is the world we live and breathe and have done for a long time. So in terms of then in terms of other sort of benefits of the cloud and from ccktech's side, so you mentioned the cost being a big thing. You mentioned vision being a big thing. Are there any other sort of elements that you thought, actually, do you know what, this is really something we can start to talk to our customers about, because we really feel this is an option for customers that potentially don't want to invest or don't have the need to invest in anything in facility?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's that lack of needed commitment. People don't feel like they're kind of roped into some sort of long-term contract, particularly with the OM Cloud offering with the 30-day terms. And often one thing that I have found that's attracted our customers when we've been proposing Object Matrix Cloud is actually the fact that it's not a large faceless corporation. They know who they're dealing with. That they are familiar with the Object Matrix brand, and just to go back to what you were saying, they know that you, like we have for the last 20 or so years, have all lived and breathed in the media world, and we understand what they're doing and what they're trying to do. We're not that sort of generic IT brand who are just trying to sort of shoehorn a solution into place.
Absolutely. And the faceless thing is very relevant. I mean, as you people have my details and can phone and harangue me whenever they want, whenever's needed. And I think the support is such a big factor, regardless of where the deployment is, that anybody using our services know fully well they can contact support, and it's a team that understand the product, that have developed the product, that have deployed the product, and that understand the customer challenges because they're media focused as well, and so can ultimately solve any problems. Not that loads come up, but can solve any problems that arise. So moving on then, so we've established that ccktech are very sorry, we've moved on to slide too early. But we're fully aware that ccktech are very experienced in deploying Object Matrix and have done for quite a while in facility, and skilled around all of that. And then, of course, on the cloud side, are very aware of the benefits that it provides to your customers. So what CCK have then done is realized actually that there's a bit of a market here to offer services above and beyond that. So without talking out of turn, did you want to mention any of those, Dan?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't name the one in particular, but I can certainly talk about the requirement. And ultimately, we were approached to do a managed backup service for a customer of ours who had a sizable Lucid Link deployment. Ultimately, there are built-in tools within Lucid Link with regards to snapshotting and other bits and pieces that we don't need to go into, but they were very keen to have a secondary copy. we looked at what we would do with that. They asked us to take that on. They said, look, can you do this for us? We said, yes, absolutely. You know, we can manage the whole backup service for you, and that's what we do. And for me personally, it was a no brainer really, because the intention was for it to be a DR, i.e., you know, everything's gone wrong and they need access to the data, and looking, you know, starting first and foremost looking at cost. The cost element, as we've already discussed with OM Cloud, was a no brainer, but also the additional tools, which, to be honest, at the moment the customer don't use, but the whole point is that we've sold it to them that if they need to get at the data, they can use Vision, they can, you know, use all the other tools that are necessary should they need to in the event of a DR situation. And you know, from our perspective, again, it was a no-brainer to partner with yourself and the rest of the team, because we knew that you'd understand what we were trying to achieve in helping us deploy that and get that up and running. And yeah, it's been a great partnership on that project, and we've really enjoyed it.
Good. So what does the future hold with in terms of that then, Dan? So offering further managed services to your customers. If anyone's listening that is interested in a wrapped up managed service offered by CCK, but that comes with the benefits of Perifery.
For sure, yeah. We are very much changing what we're doing. You know, we have, of course, historically sold lots of storage products, and we still continue to do so. And there's no reason for that to change. But we've always been very, very customer driven in what we offer, and I think, you know, that will only continue to evolve over time, and out of that has come more managed services, and we are doing a lot more data center hosting, which is, to be honest, very, very differing in each project. But you know, alongside that, we're doing some more of these managed backup services that we've discussed, and I think ultimately it all comes down to the customer requirement. A lot of the time, these people are coming to us, you know, a little bit not confused, but certainly in need of some help. And you know, particularly in a world where they don't necessarily have their own technical resource, so they're coming to us to help them and take that on for them. And you know, we can give them predictable monthly or annual billing, which would be a fraction of having their own in-house technical team ultimately. And that's what we try and do, is to help them achieve their end goal in a cost-effective way.
I think that's a really compelling offer as well. I mean, it's not it's more sort of a frequent thing now that that teams do not have in-house experts to manage the things you described, and to be honest, neither should they now. Certainly, when we talk about the technology that's available, what we're here to do is to provide a better, easier, intuitive, automated service to our customers, so they don't have to worry about the mundane, the managing data, the you know, the things like that. They can actually get on and do what makes them money, generating revenue. So on that note as well, I mean, it's be amiss of me to not do a bit of name dropping. So I spoke about Perifery earlier and how we've sort of grown through acquisition. Object Matrix was one, a company called Coringo, which now has another object store that sits in part of Perifery. But we also acquired an AI company back at the end of last year. And the ultimate goal in the coming weeks before NAB is that a lot of the AI functionality that we have will be embedded into the Vision interface. So for any of those listening that are customers, or any of the sort of thinking, is this an option? What we're doing is trying to make everybody's lives even easier. So Dan, you mentioned metadata. So we'll be doing things like auto ingest, automated metadata extraction, transcribing services, and then of course enhanced search when it comes to, you know, facial recognition and things like that. And there's loads of things to follow, but essentially, being part of the Perifery portfolio, we can develop and add as we needed. Now, bit of a silly question, I'm sure, but do you see this as a even more of a value add for both ccktech and your customers?
100%. I mean, it's sort of like you've been listening to all of the conversations I've been having with the customers. Really, I mean, having that automatic element, certainly for metadata extraction and for transcribing, is something that a lot of our customers are crying out for. You know, in terms of the customers that we're talking to and what they're trying to do. And again, it alludes back to this wish for people to do logging and tagging, and it never really happens. And I think the ability to have that done for you automatically is a no-brainer. It's a real value add for our customers.
Cool. So loads to come on that one there then. I think it's worth just mentioning as well. So we've talked about the cloud and we've talked about the benefits around the cloud, and that's the offering that CCK have, which is essentially a private cloud service that doesn't come with the prohibitive costs that public cloud does potentially, and also comes with simple media interfaces that make your life easier to manage, protect, and access your data. So we've spoken about that, but we've also just want to go back to the on-prem side of things as well. And I've seen over the years that actually the jump to cloud was great, but actually the cost side being so prohibitive has meant that a lot of organizations have reflected in their deployments and certainly the strategy when it comes to efficiencies and things like that, and bringing some of those things back in-house and back on-prem. Now, the way our AI technology will work is it will essentially be on-prem, so you're not having to use the cloud or burst to the cloud for any of that compute side of things. So it just enables you to manage your costs. So what are your thoughts about that, Dan? About a lot of people moving from cloud to on-prem because of the cost element and also the faster access to that data as it grows and grows.
It's an interesting question because we are seeing, needless to say, during the pandemic, there was a huge push to cloud technology, and there still is a place for it. But we are seeing a little bit of a retreat, people trying to keep data close to them, keeping it predictable, keeping it accessible and manageable. So I think, the ability to have that AI local to reduce the compute costs, as you said, is really compelling. But equally, as we've had lots of discussions as well, and there are a lot of people that are looking to have that private cloud element, and obviously the flexibility of the on-prem pricing model that Perifery offer makes that really possible and really achievable, because it's costing that's palatable for all aspects of the business.
Absolutely. Look, if anyone's interested in the cost side of things, just give us a shout, and I'm sure we can help out there. Two more questions, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions from anybody else. Just to say, so we've sort of spoken about the on-prem and the AI and everything else. Where do you see the future going, Dan? Where do you see the future going for ccktech, and where do you see the future going for the ccktech and Perifery collaboration?
I think for us, we're ccktech in particular, we're really keen to push the services. We've always strived to provide a really high level of service. And we've got the ability to do that in different ways these days, and that's something that I really want to continue to grow. But in terms of the offering between CCK and Perifery, we want to continue pushing OM Cloud in particular, and the on-prem subscription offering, just because we know it works, we know it's supported, but also because we know that the tool set keeps growing. And I know I keep going on about the after sales support, but that is something that I know that once the system goes in or a cloud offering is deployed, I know that the customer's looked after. And we've got the ability to support our customers very well, but to tell you the truth, when we're selling Perifery products, we don't often have to touch them because your guys look after it, and we don't really have to get involved, which is just testament to your team, really.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's great. And just looking at the time, realize we're sort of running a bit behind. So just to mention, we're both looking forward to Vegas in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, aren't we, Dan? So we will be there. Perifery will be on booth SL, so South Lower 2089. So come and see what we're doing. Give us a shout, and it'd be great to see you. I know Dan and the team will also be in Vegas as well. So it'd be great to catch up then. One last thing, you mentioned the subscription offering. That's certainly something that is really compelling. That's essentially having your own on-prem deployment we've wrapped up in a subscription price that you just pay X amount per month. So if you're interested, give us a shout. We'll talk more about that. And let's just open up the floor to any questions that we might have before we have to abruptly end, because I'm sure you've got other things to do. I guess I need to monitor the chat as well. Nothing in just yet. So we'll keep talking and give it 30 seconds. Dan, anything else that you want to mention that maybe we haven't covered?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Absolutely. Well, look, just one last thing to say is that we are very active, both CCK and Perifery, and we will be in NAB. As I mentioned, we will also be at, in fact, we're neighbours at Media Production Show. So I look forward to seeing anybody there if you're not in Vegas. And we've got lots of cool things going on over the summer. So we'll let you know to reach out if there's anything we can help with. And I hope this webinar has been fairly useful. Dan, many thanks for joining us and for your insights and your overview.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Dan. Thanks again, everybody, and nice afternoon.